Namaste, everybody. Haribo. Welcome back to our Happy Man channel. Very nice that you visited us. So today we're going to talk about two of the most prominent Vedic scriptures, the Bhagavad-gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. We're not going to go into a lot of detail about the contents. We're just going to give you some general information about these Vedic scriptures. Because in many of my lectures, I'm always talking about, I speak from the Vedic scriptures. Everything is based on the teaching of the Vedic scriptures, etc. So, people sometimes say, well, what is this Vedic knowledge? And how can I apply this Vedic knowledge in my everyday life? It's written down 5,000 years ago. It's too old. Maybe it's not adaptable to our modern world, and et cetera, et cetera. So we want to clear up some of these misconceptions. And like I said before, our viewers, they send in questions and we're just responding to those. So, I'll read a few of these questions. First question is, what are these scriptures? The Vedic scriptures are the most ancient scriptures. They were written down, as I mentioned, 5,000 years ago by a literary incarnation of the Supreme Lord known as Srila Vyasadeva. But this knowledge itself is eternal knowledge. So prior to being written down, it was passed down orally through a line of perfect masters. This is known as a disciplic succession or a parampara. And the reason a parampara is important is because nothing gets changed along the way. Nothing is left out, nothing is added, there's no opinions injected. See, it's just as it is. So one of the most wonderful of all the Vedic scriptures, and is actually our main Vedic text that we study in the Bhakti Yoga process, is the Bhagavad-gita. And I have a copy here. Now, we only study and recommend others to read and study Bhagavad-gita as it is. Because this Bhagavad-gita, it was, translated by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami, my spiritual master, to whom I pay my deepest gratitude and respects. He wrote it as it is. He translated it from the original Sanskrit. He was a very, very advanced Sanskrit scholar, as well as a great pure devotee of the Lord. So therefore, he could understand the true meaning and present it as it is. So that's why we don't, encourage people to read other Bhagavad Gitas, not because, ours is the best, but because this is the most pure authorized version of this text. So the Bhagavad-gita as it is simply a conversation that actually took place on this planet 5,000 years ago between the Supreme Lord himself, Lord Krishna, who actually appeared on the planet 5,000 years ago. That's in history. It can be traced back. It's not like some fabricated idea. And so he had a conversation with a very close friend and disciple, Arjuna. Arjuna had major decisions to make. It was a very intense situation. Again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because that would take a long time. But the point is, he decided that he was going to react to this situation in a certain way based on, what he'd heard from scripture and what he'd realized and et cetera, et cetera. And then the Supreme Lord Krishna responded to his declaration, I'm going to do this, with, no, that's wrong understanding. See, you are not understanding correctly what you should do. And then he enlightened him with this full presentation of truth, starting with enlightening him to the fact you are not your material body, you are spirit soul. See, the body's temporary, you are eternal. Famous quote from the second chapter of Bhagavad-gita, text number 20. For the soul there's neither birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. The soul is eternal, ever existing, primeval, unchangeable. The soul is not slain when the body is slain. You're not the body. I'm not my body. Nobody is their body. We're the life force, the person in the body. And then, based on that original truth, Krishna explains to Arjuna his duties, how he should view the world, how he should view his immediate situation, how he should take all of this and apply it to his life in this situation. He explains all about the material creation, the influences that the different aspects of nature have upon us, known as the modes of nature. We're going to give another presentation on that later on. And it builds and builds and builds on this knowledge of truth, enlightening Arjuna further and further, until finally he comes to the conclusion, you should surrender unto me. See, give up all your varieties of religion, see, and simply surrender unto me. Allow me to take over your life. I will guide you perfectly. I will protect you from all karma, all fear. You will be perfectly situated. That's true for every one of us. See, that's not ancient knowledge only for them. That's for every single person right now in their life. We're all faced with material life and all of its, contaminating influences upon us, making us forget who we are, what our purpose in life, which is spiritual realization. We don't remember the Lord at all. If we do, it's usually a misconception. We have ideas about the Lord that aren't true. See, we're void of real understanding. So, Bhagavad-gita enlightens us through all of this truth, see, and brings us to a point where we can receive that final instruction that Krishna gave to Arjuna in chapter 18, verse 66. So, that is Bhagavad-gita. Wonderful text. It's the roadmap of life. It's the bright light that guides us in life. We're in the darkness, we can't see, we stumble, we fall, we go on the wrong trail, etc. No, this is actually taking us to the final perfection of life. Srimad Bhagavatam is another wonderful scripture that was a conversation again between a great king, Maharaj Parikshit, that had received information he was going to leave his body in 7 days, and he wanted to use that last 7 days in his body for the best way to prepare for this moment of departure. So Sukadeva Goswami, a perfectly enlightened being, actually spoke this entire Srimad Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit, and so it's the work that has so many wonderful stories about ancient times and great devotees and their life's example and how we can conduct our life. It's so interesting, but yet it's so magnificent and filled with amazing stories, information, guidelines. It gives us subjects to focus on, to realize that this is how I should live my life, perfectly suited for these modern times of quarrel, chaos, confusion. We have no direction. We're just, wandering around in the darkness of ignorance and having a hard time doing so. So let's see what another question here may be. How did the scriptures appear and why they should be considered authoritative? I covered that. They appeared from the writings of Srila Vyasadeva, who is the Supreme Lord. It's not just some person, some man. I had one time a person told me, "Oh, why should I follow Bhagavad-gita? It's just written by some man." Wrong. It's written by the Supreme Lord himself in this particular incarnation. And they're authoritative because they're written by the Lord. They come to us through a line of perfect teachers, parampara. Remember? There are many different versions of the Bhagavad-gita. Are they all the same? And again, I kind of touched on that idea. They are not all the same. If I took this truth and I translated it and I presented it, commented on it, and I don't understand it, I'm not a perfect representative. I'm not empowered by the Lord. I'm not given this understanding in my heart. Then who knows what would be there? See? The conclusions of Bhagavad-gita that have been presented by other personalities are completely different than the conclusion of Bhagavad-gita as it is, text 18, verse 66. Chapter 18, verse 66. Give up all varieties of religion and simply surrender unto me. I will protect you from all fear. Do not doubt. Yeah, their conclusion is very different than that. So they're not all the same. Only we recommend Bhagavad-gita as it is by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupad. Can a person in the modern world follow these scriptures? Yes, I've already referred to that. Is it possible to study it by yourself, or is it better to find a teacher? If you follow the teachings of Bhagavad-gita in verse 34, chapter number 4, Krishna very clearly says one should approach a spiritual master. This means bona fide spiritual master in this disciplic line of pure masters. One should approach a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. Such a realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. Yes, we need to study it under the guidance of a perfect bona fide teacher. It's interesting. You go to school from kindergarten on up. And what do you do when you go to school? First grade. You get books and you get a teacher. See? And then second grade and university and etc. You get books and you get a teacher. But when it comes to spiritual life, people say, I don't need a teacher. I don't need books. I'll figure it out myself. Doesn't make sense. See? So, yes, we need books, Bhagavad-gita. We need a teacher, bona fide spiritual master, to be successful. I may think when Krishna says something to Arjuna, oh, he meant this, or I take it one way, when it may be completely wrong. But if I read the commentary of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami, then I can see, oh, I didn't understand that correctly. And, a living spiritual master, to guide us, because even I read the commentary, I might still have misunderstanding. But my living spiritual master can say, no, it's not like that, it's like this. So yes, we definitely need a teacher. Do I need to study Sanskrit to read the original text? Absolutely not. And I've had people over the years say, oh, I'm studying Sanskrit, or I'm going to study Sanskrit, so I can read the original Sanskrit version of Bhagavad-gita, and therefore that will be the best. Sanskrit is a very, very complex, difficult language. One word can have many, many meanings. If I don't know the context, if I don't have full understanding of the whole, let's say, meaning behind the words that Krishna spoke, for instance, I could just interpret it completely the opposite of what it may be. So even if you learn Sanskrit, and many, many people know Sanskrit, it's not, just a few. In India, there's many Sanskrit scholars, and also outside of India. That doesn't mean they're qualified to read, translate, and present Bhagavad-gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, or any of these wonderful Vedic texts. Must come through bona fide spiritual master. So instead of, spending so much time and energy learning Sanskrit, spend that time and energy letting the truth of Bhagavad Gita come to you in your language through a bona fide spiritual master. So here we have His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami giving us Bhagavad Gita as it is, and Srimad Bhagavatam, etc. All right, so thank you very much for your interest. It's very wonderful that you have an interest in these truths, and may your spiritual life blossom. See you next time. All the best. Namaste. Haribol.